tack för invitationen Sven och trevligt att vara här. Jag gick ett varv runt och tittade på alla uppstartsbolag. Väldigt inspirerande att se. And I will actually take this in English, so it's easier for you to understand, and also all the slides will be in English. So, my name is Reidar Gårdebäck, so I'm the CEO of Ortivus. And we will a little bit change because we will talk about IT systems and medtech products, because that's our focus area. And our tagline is saving vital seconds, because what we deliver to our customers is really about saving seconds in getting the right information about that specific patient. Especially, it's really important in urgent acute trauma cases. So first of all, healthcare today, people think that, okay, if I need healthcare, I need to see the physician. I need to go there and go to the hospital. And how many of you around here, hands up, has called an ambulance to go to the hospital? Some of you, yeah. And for you, they did drive you to the hospital, or? Yeah. Which is mostly the case because it's a trauma. But actually, for our customers, around 40% of the ambulances, they never drive to the hospital. They do much more on site, and that's the change in the trend, because the care is moving out and from the hospital, and the future is really being delivering the care to the patient where the patient is located, which could be at home. We see much more of treatment at home, and actually it's in many cases more efficient to be treated in your home than in the hospital. And this movie going in the background is actually a movie from our different customers. And what we deliver is really the tools. So when you on your way to an accident or a scene, you can retrieve information about what if you have the information, which patient is it, you can find the data regarding that patient already on your way out. You can see, okay, what allergies do you have? What different medications are you on? Can you also because usually the patient calling for an ambulance are calling for because they are multi-sick, so it's not unusual they have been in the ambulance a couple of months before. So you can compare and see historic data. So what is then the healthcare transformation? Because if we look at the healthcare today, it's a lot of different barriers. And first of all, we have a digital transformations. We need more innovations and also cybersecurity regarding those digital systems. Interoperability, if you haven't heard that word before, that's really about sharing information between different digital systems, because previously we talked a lot in the discussions that, oh, we need a new system that will replace all the local systems. I'm a believer that there is no system that can replace everything. What we need to focus on is interoperability, that you can share information between different systems. But they can still be really specialized. And remote patient care, that you have this patient-centric approach, that you deliver the care to the patient where the patient is located. And actually, the pandemic we have been through has actually driven innovation, and we are much more digital today, because suddenly many realize that a patient which is multi-sick and old, bringing them to the hospital actually increases the chances that they will get an infection. So suddenly the demand for new digital technology was increased. And we need also decision support. So help from different IT systems or from different measurements. What is the best treatment, or what is that we need to check for this specific patient. And then for the staff themselves, I mean, we have to have more ergonomic environment. And all healthcare is really, you need to use your resources in the more efficient way. Just for an example, one of our customers, they have been using the system for 10 years, and they now need to treat 30% more patient cases, but they have exactly the same resources as they had 10 years ago. So if someone would told them 10 years ago that, okay, yeah, you need to drive efficiency by 30%, probably everyone would said that's not possible. But it's about delivering care in a different way. And then if you have digital systems, then you can analyze all that data that comes in. And then you can really continue to drive efficiency. Where are the different cases? And for example, because we are in the ambulance care, I will show more about that. You know, where are the accidents? The car accidents are on Monday mornings and Friday evenings in those locations. So, I mean, they spread the vehicles where the accidents are. And you can also see what kind of diseases are there. And you can also predict that now we have a disease coming up in this area. So a lot of analysis can be done through the big data. And actually, those different points here is from the WHO. So this is nothing we have come up with ourselves. But actually, in our solutions, we cover all those different areas. So what is then Ortivus? We're an innovative Swedish medtech IT company. So we're mixing technology with IT systems. We're headquartered in Stockholm, and we have our also an office in UK, Southampton. And we're listed on the NASDAQ. And our solutions is used by clinicians, professionals. So it's not equipment that you leave at home with the patient. This is clinicians using our system. And it's advanced EPRs, and EPR stands for electronic patient record. So that you could say is the digital system replacing the pen and paper, but also doing much more than replacing paper and pen with a computer. It's actually all the built-in intelligence and functionality. But more and more we see that those systems are being used in what we call advanced monitoring environments. Could be primary care units, but also for first responders or home care treatment facilities. So we are on the market, and we're focus areas, you could say, is the Nordic countries and in the UK, Ireland. And we have installations also in Italy, and also all of Singapore ambulances, more than 300 are using our systems. And in the yellow marked areas, that's where we have partners, and we're working to establish our first customers in those geographies. And currently our systems is being used by around 12,000 paramedics per day, and 250,000 patients are going through our systems on a monthly basis. But all the patient data belongs to our customers. We don't have access to the patient data, but it's our systems being used for 250,000 cases. And then if we look then on the different product, you could say this is a product range. It's the monitoring, which is actually measuring the vital parameters for the patients. There are defibrillators if there is a cardiac arrest. There is the electronic patient records, the digital part of the system. We also, during this year, have launched two new products. One is en route, which is actually in the front of the vehicle. That's the navigation part of where you get from the dispatch system. You have to go to H.C. Andersen Boulevard 52, then they get all that data, how to get there, and they can also start to collect information about what has happened at scene. And then we have also a software called Fleet Control, and that's keeping track of the whole fleet, of the status of the vehicles, and you have all the different daily checks digitally, but also, most important, you keep track of all your drugs in the vehicle that you have, and what has been used and by whom and so on. So you can digitally track everything and it's centralized, so you see exactly what's out there and what needs to be refilled in each vehicle. So the monitoring I mentioned, this is a modular system. So you're taking the 12-lead ECG for the patient, blood pressure, saturation, etc., temperature. And everything is handled on a tablet, digital tablet, and all data received on this device is also in real time available on the emergency department or in the college office and so on. So this means that you could actually have that specialist remotely on site in real time. So this could be, I mean, a lot of people now are using Teams for different meetings, and this could be seen as a clinical Teams session, exactly sharing patient information. On that tablet device, you can use also the electronic patient record. There is not needed that you need our monitoring, which means that you need our electronic patient record. All those products can be used separately. But of course, if you have the whole set from us, then you use the same tablet and you just switch. Now I want to look at the monitoring, or now I do the EPR handling. And the EPR works in the same way, that everything is directly visible also at the emergency department. So they can see in advance, before the ambulance arrives, the status of the patients, what they need to prepare and so on. And also, this can go also directly to the cardiology department, or if it's a stroke patient and so on. So it's really about saving time, instead of suddenly, by surprise, an ambulance arrives and then you say, what has happened here? And for the defibrillator is when there are patients with cardiac arrest or so on, then of course you need a defibrillator. And we have a full range of different, everything from the public access that you usually see in airports or sports arenas and so on, up to the more advanced that you use within the hospital. And we are working together with the Spanish company regarding the defibrillators. So that's not developed by us ourselves, but it's needed in our product portfolio, so to say. And then the navigation part. Usually I receive a question, why do you have navigation? You can use your ordinary mobile. Yes and no, because the routing for an ambulance, you can drive, or even if it's cycle areas or pedestrian areas and so on. So that's a different map. And also you have all the status from the dispatch system, because they could change the address that, okay, actually the accident is here, you have the pickup on this place. And also you receive all information from the dispatch system, because usually they talk with the person calling in. So they are adding information while they're driving that. It's actually multiple patients. There is a big car accident. We need to call more ambulances. So it's a lot of synchronization. So this is actually in the front end of the vehicle. Our other applications is, you could say, in the back of the ambulance, close to the patient. But we are moving forward to have this also in front. And usually the question is, why going into this area? And it's easy, because all those, we talked about interoperability, those applications are so linked to each other, because we get the information from the alarm dispatch system, it goes into the navigation. Everything they put in from the navigation is transferred back to the EPR system. And when we transport into the hospital, everything from that EPR system, we can transfer into the hospital system. So the hospital system is fed with information directly. Even if there are separate systems, we have this interoperability and interface between them. And then the last, and this is a company we acquired earlier in spring, who has developed this fleet control, which works as a mobile app, where you can have all your checking of your vehicles, but also this medication part. And other systems being used today is either pen or paper, or they have one system for keeping track of the vehicles, one for if there is something wrong with that vehicle, it needs to go to service, and you have also staff, which is another system, and then you have medication for a third system. Now we have everything combined in one easy-to-use software. And when we talk about latest orders, because our business is procurement driven, it's not like 2 ambulances order a system and then 3 here and there. It's usually large trusts, regions, or nationwide. In this case, it was Estonia that wanted to replace their current EPR system to a new modern one. And we received that contract, so we are actually in the phase of starting that up, and we'll do that during next year. And Estonia is actually really in the forefront of digital systems, so this system will be really connected to social care, police, healthcare, hospitals, insurance companies through their different interface. So this system will be in the forefront when it's installed up and running. We have several systems around in UK. They are divided in different ambulance trusts, and we have currently 4 different trusts. And just to comparison, one trust, they have more vehicles than Denmark or Sweden in one trust. So we have Southwest, which is down to Cornwall, Southampton to Cornwall, and then we have Southampton up on the east side of London up to Oxford, South Central, and we have also Northern Ireland with around 300 vehicles. And then we have the latest order, a small one, but still important, is Jersey, one of the Channel Islands that go with our system. We also have received orders in Sweden. Jönköping is the latest for our EPR system. They were already using our monitoring system, because usually that's the trend. They start with one application and then they say, okay, how can we build on? So they have been using our monitoring for 2 years, and now they continue with the EPR, and they will also go with navigation en route. And for last week, we received an order for Södermanland, which is just south of Stockholm, and that's for our monitoring. So in Sweden, where we have the biggest coverage now, that's 21 regions, and we have 16 of those are using our system. So we have a strong coverage there. And financially, we're on a yearly basis between 100 to 120 million Swedish kronor, and the net sales for Q1 and Q2 was unfortunately lower than the last year. We have a growth target of 15% on the annual basis, and the decline here is mainly of shortage of components, which we also wrote in our quarterly report. And that's for our monitoring and our DFI parts, because that include electronics, and it has been really difficult to get all the small components necessary to put those together. So that shortage was around 4.7 million in orders we couldn't deliver. And the gross margin, as we have large installations, could be like Singapore, or there is a large trust with a couple of hundred ambulances, the product mix, the margin for the different product varies, and therefore also our total margin can vary up and down, really depending on the product mix there. So we have a decrease for Q1 and Q2 so far, with our margin going down to from 53 to 43. So it's mainly if the balance between software and also the hardware components, because especially in those monitoring business, you need the hardware, the computers to ship that. But after that installation, the mainly revenue is on recurring license and service and support fees. So that triggers the recurring revenue. And then on the financial development, we have had 13 positive quarters, and the dip was actually the last Q2 when we made a loss. But also we have invested quite a lot in new products, and also to broaden our portfolio, and also to increase the software part, and also in order to increase the license and the revenue stream, because those systems are usually being used 5 to 10 years, and the contract period is also over several years. And we are working then on our gross margin in order to improve that over time. And to create those different products, you need to have a lot of different partners, because you cannot do and develop everything yourself. We are having our development for software, our hardware, and electronics is developed in Stockholm, and we also have our production there. But then we have partners, as I mentioned, for example, for the defibrillators, we're working with a Spanish company called Bex Cardio. And for different markets, we have distributors. We're working together with a company called Corvanta, especially for the Australia and New Zealand market. People may ask, so why Australia and New Zealand? It sounds like really far away. But on the other hand, their system is more or less identical to the systems we're using in UK. So for us, the threshold to go to Australia, it's much smaller than, for example, if we say, let's enter the French market or the German market, because they have different IT systems, different requirements, and so on. But our systems currently running in UK can be used from almost from day one in Australia and New Zealand. And then we have also a partner, for example, the EVAM for the navigation part, because they are developing all the different maps where you can have different overlays on the maps, because that's a separate science itself. So we are developing the application, but they are our experts on the map side. And then summary, you could say we are in an active segment, because the healthcare is a growing segment. It's not so fancy when the economy is growing fast. On the other hand, when the economy goes down, people are still sick, people still need healthcare, and so on. So it's a stable business in that sense. Integration to different systems is really key, and that's where we push one of our strongest parts, that we're really flexible, open to integrate to other systems. And driving efficiency is also really key. Why should customers invest in our solution? And usually the argument is the other way around. Can they afford to continue their business without being more efficient? So it's the other way around. And remote monitoring, in order to see what's happening at scene without having to transport the patients. And it can be, the real time of the parameters, but also as simple as you have a video function. You have video for a stroke patient. You see exactly the patient, how the patient is reacting. We saw the images before with with the mice running over. And that could be like an example. Then you can connect to the hospital. You can have the expert, the stroke department, looking at the patient directly on video and say, yeah, you need to come in immediately. Then last also then, all those demands or barriers in the healthcare, they are global. It doesn't matter if it's Denmark or if it's UK or in Australia or wherever. I mean, the only difference is that it varies a little bit regarding how they set up their pre-hospital care. But in general, it's the same problems everywhere. How to drive efficiency and deliver care as quickly as possible, and also for the patient that really needs it. And that's also why, for example, avoiding having to transport patients into the hospital is so key, because that means that you can free up time on the hospital for those that really needs the care, not for the ones that you can go home in half an hour, because still they have taken up a lot of resources. Yeah? Thank you. Open up for questions.
And I have two questions, but they relate to each other. One is you're currently in a great deal of a number of markets in Europe and Australia and New Zealand. What is your penetration or market share in those countries, or what is your potential in those countries still? Because I understand it's very municipal driven, where you get in and where you're not in.
Yeah.
And secondly, would be for that, say, potential you have in current markets and markets you're not in already. What does your future look like? What is your outlook, and what to reach financing?
Yeah, good questions. And I wish that we could have the market share we have in Sweden, 16 out of 21. I don't know the percentage, but it's like 75% market share. I don't think that's realistic to go and say, okay, we want that on a global basis. That's not likely. But still, I mean, the installation we have outside the Nordics, we're just scratching on the surface, more or less. And there are very few global companies. Because one of the standard questions is, okay, who are your competitors? And I can tell you that the answer is, it depends. Because when we, for example, just between the Nordics and UK, when we quote in UK, we meet 3-4 competitors. None of them are in the Nordics. And then we have 3-4 competitors in the Nordics. And then if we're in Australia, there are another one. So there are really diversified, small local players. And I think I'm a believer that this market will be more and more harmonized, and there will be a few larger players that work more globally. And we want to be one of those larger players on an international basis. So back to your question, what's the market share? And I would say for the Western European countries, I would say that's where we should put our focus, English speaking, and also where you have central healthcare, where you see that the savings on your pre-hospital is also good for the hospital care. Because we see differences. For example, many things say that, why don't you go to US? That's a huge market. I see you're smiling here. You maybe know the answer.
I also almost know the answer.
No, but everybody, oh, that's a huge market, yes. But when we present our assistance for ambulances in US, they're like, But if there are fewer patients going into the hospital, we will lose money. What's the interest in that? So you have to have this holistic perspective. How can we use our tax money in the best possible way to treat patient in the most effective way. If you don't have those drivers, then it's difficult to have the arguments for systems like this. Did I answer your question?
Yes, thank you. But also the second part about the outlook. What's your plans for the future and your outlook and plans?
I mean, we're still a small company. We're like 45 employees. So we also understand we have to grow step by step. But the Western Europe, absolutely, and also in Asia. And then it's Asia where you have those finance systems where you really have this close partnership between pre-hospital care and the hospitals themselves. And our installation in Singapore is a good example of that. And why Singapore? Because they are also advanced when it comes to digital system. Because countries without any other digital systems probably don't invest in this as a first step. You have to, or you have, but it's more beneficial if you have a modern system within the hospital, that you have hospital central systems, or you have a national care records where you can, from a personal ID or a name, you can retrieve information from regarding that patient. I mean, we have that in most European countries. If you have that ID, you can bring up previous records, you can know the background and so on for that patient. So if you have those digital systems around, then really you can benefit from our type of system, because then we can retrieve that information and feed into the decision support. Yeah.
I don't want to be rude, but it seems like if you're in 2,700 vehicles, your revenue or your business seems rather small. Are you being squeezed in between all your partners? Or, I mean, what's the problem, so to speak?
Why aren't there more vehicles using our system?
Or why aren't your revenue larger if you are in 2,700 vehicles? What is your split between the investment for the product and service and revenue of the current revenue?
In our quarterly report, we don't split per country or into the details. So we're not publishing that data. What we are publishing is the income on the Nordics and on the Europe excluding the Nordics. And then we have rest of the world. So we split it in 3 different geographies. And then we have also the split between the ambulance care, which is the major part. And it was, some years ago, it was more than 90%, probably 95% of our revenue. But as we grow with more different products, and the uptake of our systems is also in the primary care settings and also for other than just ambulances, we are measuring that. So that is in our quarter report, and that is increasing step by step. So we want to be less dependent on a single area and also grow the technology into other areas. But we will only be on the pre-hospital, you could say, the care outside the hospital, because that's our technology. We're not aiming to build any systems or a journal system being used in the hospital. There are other companies which are experts on that part of journal systems, and they are usually really huge systems. I mean, you know several of those. It could be Cambio is strong in the Nordics, but then you have international like Cerner or Epic, and they're really good in that, but not in the pre-hospital care. So we don't see them as competitors at all. They are our partners for us. Yeah.
So let's say you get an order for like 4 million Swedish. how much of that is for the actual system, and how much is recurring revenue for a service or support?
Mostly it's recurring revenue, but also that depends on what they are buying from us. If we take the Estonia example, Estonia order, that's pure software. We deliver the software, so that means that's recurring revenue year by year. For other monitoring deals, from the last week, for example, the one in Sörmland, that's a 10 million. A big chunk, but a chunk of that is actually the hardware in the first year, because they need the computers, they need the tablets, holders in the vehicles. But once they have that, then it's recurring. So when we announce the order value, it depends how much. If there is hardware included, that's a first year revenue. But if it's only software, it's licenses. Yeah.
Okay, so maybe another question. If all your 2,700 vehicles were running all your systems, what kind of revenue would that generate?
Oh, good. No idea. No idea. That would be a dream, wouldn't it? They use everything from us. No. In UK, it's primarily the software. It's the EPR, and they have also a different setup, because two of the larger customers, they're using what we call the managed service. They pay us a fee, and that includes that we have the tablets, we're running the servers, we're running the software, 24/7 support and everything. And usually the Nordic customers, they do it more traditionally. They purchase the equipment, so they own it. And then they pay the license. So the business model differs from market to market, and we are adapting to the module depending on that customer. But in Singapore, for example, that's only software. I mean, for us to handle, they have like 800 Android tablets, and they break and they go. I mean, we have a local partner handling all that, and we focus on what we are good at, which is the software.
So, yeah. To put it the fine way, if you have 5 or 6 products on one of the slides you show, let's just say 5 or 6, on average, your customer has 1 or 2.
Yes, the average has 1 or 2. There are a few exceptions, and the last order we received from Jönköping, that's actually one of the first customers where they have all 4, and the fleet control is on new, so hopefully we get the first customers using all our 5 components pretty soon.
Thank you.
Yes, there was Start.
Just a supplementary question. You are both a hardware and software company, correct?
Yes.
How do you run your software business? Is it a very standardized platform, which is like a software as a service, or in a one uniform way? Or do you run several instances for some customers or all your customers? Do they have their own instance, own database, or how do you run it?
No, we run it. The software itself is standardized, but then it's just configuration. So we create a release, software release, and that works for Singapore or Denmark or Sweden or UK. Same software, and then it just changes in the configuration, because they can have different modules, different language, and so on. But that's a configuration file. But then the software itself runs on usually a local server within the customer, because they, for example, they are still really afraid of running cloud-based, or if it's cloud-based in other countries and so on. The UK systems needs to be based in UK because it's outside the EU. And in EU is a little bit easier, but you could say usually it's based at the customer and their IT departments. Yeah. So they host the service and all that. With the exception of those customers which have managed service, because then they outsource that to us.
One last question. Sir?
You think this question is a little bit ridiculous, but I'm thinking about the big tech companies. They're gradually moving into diagnostics, healthcare, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, this what is a smart what they could do ECG, not at the level that you're doing.
Yeah.
Okay. Could these companies, would this area be attractive for these companies? Is it big enough so these companies could go into this area because they are very strong regarding IT?
Yeah. No, and it's a good question, and it's those tech companies, they are using 99.9%. It's end user devices like a smartwatch. You see the ECG and so on, and we're not in that area because the price for that is something completely different than our system, and our system is for clinical use and is used by the clinicians. So for example, I don't know if anyone of you have tried, if you have a diabetes and you have downloaded one of those 800 apps measuring everything, and then you ask the hospital, can I download my data I have stored here into your server and system? And it's really difficult for those systems to really import into the data and or into the hospital systems, and also the clinical value for a smartwatch. I mean, I don't think any cardiologist would say that I do my treatment and I put in the medicine based on someone's smartwatch ECG. So we don't see them as competitor or a threat at all, because we are focusing on the clinical applications and for clinicians to use, and they have different requirements and more tough requirements regarding uptime and reading and so on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.